from Isaiah chapter 35, verses 1 through 10. And that's on page 513 of the Pew Bible. So Isaiah 35, 1 through 10. We'll hear some of what the shepherd was talking about in this passage. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer and a mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become like a pool in the thirsty ground, bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and rushes will grow. And a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. The unclean will not journey on it. It will be those who walk in that way. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor will any ferocious beast get up on it. They will not be found there, but only the redeemed will walk there, and the ransom of the Lord will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now I have a moment of silence. Okay, our second reading will be James 5, 7 through 10. And that will be on page 181 of the Pew Bible. James 5, 7 through 10. Be patient then, brothers, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, and how patient he is for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against each other, brothers, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Brothers, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Thank you.
Would stand for the reading of the good news. Reading from Matthew chapter 11. When John the Baptist heard in prison what Christ, Messiah, was doing, he sent his disciples to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you hear and what you see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Blessed is the man who does not get tripped up because of me. The word of the Lord. Indeed, you may be seated. Are you the one? The question wouldn't haunt us so much if it had come from somewhere else and someone else besides John the Baptist of all people. After all, John's whole life was wrapped up in bearing witness to the world that Jesus was just that. Jesus was the one. Even before his birth, John gave a prenatal leap of joy in his mother's womb, announcing that Jesus was the one. He was the voice calling Israel to prepare the way of the Lord. He was there when the heavens split open overhead, and the Father said, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased. This is the one." But now, the one whose existence is witness, the one whose existence is witness, says witness to Jesus. He asks, "Are you the one?" What has happened to John that he, of all people, should be asking such a thing? What has made him question whether Jesus is the one on whom he and the rest of us should be pinning our deepest hopes? It seems that John's trouble with Jesus is the kind of trouble we sometimes have with him too. John is disillusioned with Jesus because he is not matching up to expectations that he has of him. Just last week, we heard John cry out, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." That is, get ready because the world is about to undergo new management. Turn around because Jesus is the Messiah, and his coming to bring the reign of God is coming to our lives and our world. John announces that the Messiah is coming to baptize with fire and wind, coming with an axe to clear out the dead wood, coming with a winnowing fork to do some serious sorting out of things. But now in today's passage, Jesus has come, and when John hears what he's doing, he wonders if he's put his money on the wrong horse. Where's the fiery wind blowing? Where's the axe making the wood chips fly? Where's the sorting out of the good and bad? Where's God's victory? And when we remember where John is when he asks this question, we realize his disillusionment is not only cosmic, not only political, but personal too. John's work as the Messiah's frontman, the king's frontman, has landed him in the muck of King Herod's prison. So if Jesus is indeed the coming one, then why are people like Herod continuing to run the show? And why are people like John still eating his gruel? If Jesus has come to set prisoners free, you'd think he would start with his right-hand man, wouldn't he? John is in one of those moments of wondering what his life has been about and fearing that it had all been a terrible, terrible mistake. It is this moment of wondering, his wondering if he's been forsaken, if the one for whom he has waited all this time has turned out to be an impostor. For all the attempts by the church to polish up John's question, it should be read as a question born of disillusionment and doubt. Jesus' ministry does not seem to be enough, glorious enough, righteous enough, fast enough. In short, Jesus' ministry doesn't look to be messianic enough. With a couple of thousand years under our belt now, most of us can at least empathize with John's disillusionment and doubt. For the Advent hope for the consummation of God's kingdom that both John and we proclaim has yet to be revealed in the world. And so our lives appear to roll on under the leadership of the Herods of the world as if it always had. The daily news churns out reports of our ongoing injustice, poverty, war, and death as if it were news, which it's not. So when the bad weather sets in, when the bad weather isn't lifting and the wait gets long, like John, we can have trouble hanging on to our Advent hope, let alone proclaiming it as good news to others. Our hope gives way to despair, Childlike faith in God's soaring future is fogged in by low-level doubt. One way we cope with this is by reducing our expectations of who Jesus is to a constellation of religious feelings, platitudes, and otherworldly ideals. After all, if we're expecting little, we can't be disappointed by much. In other words, we shrink Christianity down to something innerworldly or otherworldly rather than asking it to do some heavy lifting with the hard realities of our lives and our world. So Jesus just becomes one more form of therapy or more otherworldly escape or the drug of our choice. And if we don't reduce our hopes down, we redirect them to John's someone else. Are you the one to come, or should we expect someone else? Someone else, say, like Barack Obama. I remember when he was running for president, Oprah asked Iowans when she came here, is he the one? Couldn't help but overhear John's question. In our despair, salvation in the name of freedom and democracy can look more realistic than some ancient parochial theocracy, like what John is looking for. And of course, this is the time of year when the empire pulls out the stops to redirect our hopes toward being content with our lives in exile. With a promise of the good life, there is something new, something improved, something bigger, something better, something faster out there that will make us happy. So get out your credit cards and swipe your way to Christmas. Now, if we do resist reducing our hopes or redirecting them and stick with Jesus on his own terms, sooner or later, some measure of the trouble John found himself in will find us too. And when it does come to roost on our own doorstep, it most often comes bundled with a dose of doubt. And this is when the question is not just cosmic and political, but personal for us as well. It's then that Jesus' ministry does not seem to be messianic enough. It seems too small, too soft, too slow. And then we find ourselves sitting in the cell of our own, a cell of doubt and disillusionment. And the pain of it all gives us the courage to throw up one of the more honest prayers of our lives. Are you the one to come? Or should we expect someone else? This is a story of crashing disillusionment. John's, mine, ours. Of anyone who's looked for a Lord who does not come by the time we thought he would, or does not come in the way we thought he should. What a strange story to be chosen for the gospel reading on this Sunday of all Sundays in Advent. This Sunday is known as Gaudet Sunday, Rejoice Sunday. What's up with that? What were they thinking? How could this painful, depressing story of John's disillusionment become a source of joy in our lives this day? Disillusionment, when faced, is indeed a hard thing. But is it a bad thing? Disillusionment is literally the loss of an illusion. The loss of an illusion. Illusions about ourselves, the church, the world, illusions about God himself. And while it is almost always a painful thing, it's never a bad thing to lose the lies we've mistaken for the truth. Only through the judgment of our illusions, especially about God, do we come to discover forms of life that can free us from our enchantment with the diminishment of our lives and false hopes. Disillusioned, we find out what is not true, and we can be set free to seek, if we dare, what is. Barbara Brown Taylor writes, so every letdown becomes a lesson and a lure, as in a fishing lure. Did the Messiah fail to come when I rubbed the lamp? Then perhaps the Messiah is not a genie. Did the Messiah fail to come and punish my enemies? Then perhaps he is not a trigger-happy cowboy. The lure Who then is the Messiah? Over and over, our disappointments can draw us deeper into the mystery of the ministry of Christ, who reveals the truth about who God is and what God is doing in the world. After all, this God is the Messiah, disabusing us of our twisted notions of power and glory and justice. And then comes the punchline of this strange text. In the punchline of this passage, Jesus responds to all this with, of all things, a beatitude, a blessing. It's one of the stranger blessings in the Bible. Blessed is the man, John, and then men and women, us. Blessed is the man who does not get scandalized on account of me, tripped up, scandalized on account of me. What Matthew is already hinting at here is that God's kingdom will come through scandal. It started with a Christmas scandal. It'll end with a Good Friday one. God's glory, power, wisdom, and justice coming to make all the difference in the world will indeed come, but through scandal. In the end, Matthew's story asks us if we can be impressed with a Messiah who begins by bearing the pain of the world. It is a story that asks us to be impressed by God whose mercy, patience, and suffering love have now been revealed to be centuries and centuries long. So blessed are those of you who do not lose your faith in the Messiah when he doesn't meet your expectations. Blessed are you who don't quit on the Messiah when he doesn't come the way you thought he would and wanted him to. Blessed are those of you who do not let the Messiah you are expecting blind you to the one you have already been given. Blessed are those of you who are not afraid to revise your hope by suffering through disillusionment and doubt, to receive the joyful gift of new and clearer vision. And if it's only through the judgment of our illusions about God that we come to a true and living hope, then blessed are you when you let the Messiah, whom Israel's God has vindicated through resurrection, define Messiah. And so on this Rejoice Sunday, we dare to pray with joy for the gift of disillusionment. Lord, let the light of your face shine on us, that we may be saved, that we may have life, to find our way in the darkest night. Let your light shine on us. Let your love come over us. Amen.